Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things you love. It's another day, another take on some Tottenham transfer news, views and clues for you, and all other things going on around the club. So strap yourself in. Please smash the like button if you enjoy the content like you always do. Your like game is incroyable. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. We finally broke 38k. Thank you very much for all of the support in that endeavour. We're on to 40 now, or 39 first, I guess. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment or two. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. Right, let's start with our man, the main man, Heung Min's son, Heung Min daddy. A couple of stories out there that are being conflated, and I think people are going from 2 + 2 and maybe getting something other than 4 here, but he has come out and said that he needs to say goodbye to Tottenham properly. He needs a way to come back to London. He didn't get a chance. His last game was in Korea, and obviously since then he flew straight to MLS, into Los Angeles, where he's done very, very well. But he has spoken about his desire to come back and say goodbye properly. Now, at the same time, there are reports suggesting that he has within his contract a clause that allows him to leave the MLS during the off-season, which I think is January, if I'm not mistaken, and to come and play for a European team. And so, you know, minds are minding here and getting to the conclusion that maybe he might come back to Tottenham for a brief stint. And I don't know how they're getting to this conclusion. Obviously, you think that Tottenham didn't replace Sonny. We've spoken about for the last 3 seasons about, are we finally going to replace Harry Kane with Harry Kane? Are we maybe going to replace Heung Min's son with Heung Min's son? Now, personally, look, the left-wing market is more moist, more damp, more available, more accessible than the striker market is, which we're going to come to in a second, in this January. But it's not exactly entirely liquid. Most of the players that we're looking at that are on that sort of short list of players like, you know, maybe Malik Fofana. Well, apparently he got injured and stretchered off the pitch for Lyon last weekend. I don't know, or don't have the update on to whether that injury is serious. We know that Antoine Semenyo is going to be incredibly difficult, both on competition, both on willingness to let him leave, and based on his contract situation, having just signed the new contract. The release clause doesn't trigger until the summer, and so it would take an abnormal, a ridiculous amount of money to get him out, if Bournemouth would even consider letting him out, given where they are in the table currently. And then you look elsewhere to players like Kenan Yildiz over in Juve, another really tricky one, although maybe with Paratici coming back and Juve's financial problems, again, we're talking about that in a second on a different story, then maybe there is some ability to make it happen, but again, unlikely. And you start to go down the list and you realise that whilst there's options, it's not easy. January is not easy anyway, and so is there any potential? Is there any possible outcome there? You might actually see Heung Min's son coming back to Spurs for a couple of months in the MLS off-season ahead of the World Cup. Listen, I would say there isn't. I'd say it's entirely unlikely, but I also don't think it's desirable. I just don't think it makes sense. Despite him having had a wonderful start to his time in the MLS, the last couple of seasons at Tottenham, he really wasn't anywhere near his best. I think everybody kind of got to the point, no matter how much in love you are with Heung Min's son, how much of your loyalties go in that direction, and I totally understand it. The notion that he hadn't fallen off at the very highest level is probably a difficult one to not agree with. And so bringing him back, look, you could maybe find something within the argument that he was just lacking in confidence, lacking in happiness, realising that his time was coming to an end. And then going to LA has kind of lifted his spirits, and you're starting to see a brilliant version of Sonny again, which you really are. If you go and look at his stuff over there, he really is smashing it out of the park. But is that because of the level? Is that because of the standard? Is it the environment? Does it all add up to a too big of a risk to kind of put your eggs back into the Sonny basket when you'd already made the decision last summer that he wasn't the guy to take you forward in that position? Again, it goes back to, I guess, poor squad planning, not having the succession plan in place, and spending all summer going after players that eventually didn't arrive. Let's move on from Sonny, though. Let me know your thoughts. Would you like him back? Do you see anything happening in that regard? I'm not sure, but let me know your thoughts. Richarlison, another player that Tottenham fans would probably be happy to see the back of, I think, for the most part. Well, he has, again, sort of given pause for thought with regards to his future, and will he be going back to Everton? There's been a lot of rumours out over the last week or so about his return to I was going to say Goodison Park, but it's not Goodison Park now, is it? It's the Hill Dickinson Arena, or as I called it on my post-match review, the Dill Hickinson. Still can't get it right. Hill Dickinson Arena. Will Richarlison go back? Well, look, there are rumours suggesting that Everton are very much looking for a new striker. They definitely need help in that regard. You know, Tierno Barry hasn't exactly smashed it, set the house on fire, shall I say, since he has got there. But he's definitely a player that I think has got a huge potential. I really do like Tierno Barry. And obviously, you know, you have Beto and players like that are trying to kind of fill in, and they're just not doing enough. If they had a striker that was able to put the ball in the back of the net more frequently than they currently do, Everton would be a really, really strong force with that balance that they have from Ndaiye on the right or on the left if Grealish is out and Grealish on the left predominantly. It creates a lot of balance in that kind of front line, but they just need someone to put the ball in the back of the net more than they currently do. And maybe Richarlison is that guy. Now, I think Tottenham fans would be okay with it, but sort of caution here, because first and foremost, the striker market is ridiculously dry, and if you sell before you buy in January, which is always the problem, the Mexican standoff, no one wants to shoot first because they don't know if they're going to get their replacement or if they can move the player on, whichever side of that kind of coin that they're on. With the striker market right now, given that we have injury problems with Solanke, given that the market is incredibly dry, there really isn't that many top strikers available that would be able to move in January in all likelihood, then despite the fact that none of us, not saying all of us, but most of us probably would like to see the Richarlison at Tottenham story come to its conclusion naturally. If that deal was to happen first before you were to find a replacement, then you might end up without any leverage in a negotiation. And given the environment, given the lack of options, and given the fact that a lot of teams are thirsty for some Tottenham money, then you might end up overpaying and committing yourself to a 4 or 5 year contract with a player that you're not particularly sold on. So either way, Richarlison to Everton, that story's been percolating anyway. He doesn't seem like he's happy at Tottenham. He seems like he's always a bit frustrated. I could see him going back to Everton, staying in the Premier League. But on top of that, in the aftermath of the Tottenham-Everton game, he was obviously seen doing a lot of autographs with the Everton fans. He still clearly has a wonderful affiliation with the guys up in Merseyside. But after the fact, on his Instagram, he reposted or shared a video that was about him signing the autographs in Everton that was titled "Come Home Richie," and I think he retweeted it or reposted it, reshared it, however it works on Instagram. I'm not sure what the phrasings are. Not one of these kind of hip kids anymore. But and so, unless he was just like sharing it because it was a nice thing, then maybe the fact that and you could argue maybe that the fact that it was titled "Come Home Richie" maybe slipped under the radar from his perspective, but you could put 2 and 2 together and maybe make the argument that he wants to go back to Everton, as he doesn't see the love or doesn't feel the appreciation from the Tottenham fans as much as he does the Everton fans. That will remain to be seen and see what happens there. Sticking with Everton for a moment, guys, Ndaiye, the amazing right winger / left winger, as I've already spoken about the balance that he can present. He was phenomenal in the game. Although a lot of Everton fans say he doesn't have the output, doesn't shoot enough, but in terms of his take-on approach, in terms of his ability to drive, his ability to get aggressive and promote the ball forward, it really is impressive. He was on that list of left wingers that I would love to see. Well, according to lots of reports this morning, Ndaiye has a €70 million asking price. Everton will not let him go for less than €70 million. What's that, 63 million pounds? So kind of within that ballpark, within that range that we saw a lot of wingers trading hands for, between 50 and 70 million this summer. And look, I don't mind it. He's 25 years old, wonderful talent. I think there is more to come from him. He's got all of the input factors. I think there is still that question mark, though, around do we need a winger? Do we need someone to support the GA deficit that we lost with Ndaiye, Sonny, Solanke and Maddison being out for so long or leaving the club entirely? Have we replaced it? Well, if you actually look at the stats, we kind of have, right? We're scoring two and a bit goals every single game. I think we're one of the top scorers in the Premier League, one of the fewest concessions in the Premier League. I think second best goal difference. So it's all pointing in the right direction, but a lot of our responsibility right now for goal output is coming from players like Micky van der Ven, other players around the squad that shouldn't really be having that priority because we're going to set pieces. And I think part of the reason why we're relying so much on set pieces, outside of the reality that that's the way that the game in general is shifting to right now. It's a new trend around throw-ins and corners and set piece excellence. Outside of that, I think it's also because we don't really have the firepower up front. both in the 9 and in the winger spot. So 70 million euros for me and Ndaiye. I'd have it. He's not the top of my list. If you are looking for someone that has a little bit of the output, a little bit of the input like an Ndaiye does, but also more of the output, then I still maintain that Ademola Lookman is a great option. I know he doesn't suit a lot of people. A lot of people that remember him from his time at Fulham, Charlton, Everton and Leicester remember a different sort of player to the one that I see when I watch Atalanta these days. He scores 23, 24, 25 times a season, and he's even though he's had some problems with his relationships in Italy over the last sort of season or so, he still does get the output when he's playing, and that to me is worth its weight in gold. So I would still put Lookman right near the very top of the list in realistic terms. If you can't get a Semenyo, if you can't get a Yildiz, if you can't get a Fofana, and you're talking about an Ndaiye or a Lookman, for me, I still think a Lookman on value for money basis, on a kind of just an input output ratio basis, I think that Lookman's the guy for me, as long as his personality isn't an issue. I'll leave that one there. Let's stick in Italy for a second, guys, and talk about Juve for a minute, shall we? Dusan Vlahovic. We've spoken about him forever. This guy, he's out of contract in the summer. Now, he is wanted by a lot of teams. Bayern Munich apparently looking at him. Barcelona are looking at him. Tottenham Hotspur are very much looking at him. Most of the teams that want that are looking at Dusan Vlahovic for when his contract is up are looking at a free transfer in the summer. Most of them aren't willing to part ways with any sort of serious money for Vlahovic in January, but apparently, according to all reports this morning, Tottenham Hotspur are, and Juve want £20 million or 20 million euros for the player. Now, again, there has to be some sort of compromise if we go down this path. For me, I'm not sold on him. I do like him. I think he's a very talented player. I have question marks about the horses for courses thing. Is he a good fit for our model for the English football, the pace, all those sorts of things? As I said before briefly, I do think that I saw a level of pace that I hadn't seen from him ever before when he recently played against Real Madrid for Juve, and there was a breakaway, and he had a 50-yard sprint with Militao, who is no slouch, and he won the battle, won the duel, and he got a shot away. The shot didn't go in, but it was an incredible turn of pace that I hadn't seen from Dusan Vlahovic. Having spoken to Jacko Katz, who does watch Italian football more than I do, he said, your first impression was right. He doesn't usually demonstrate that, and he can be quite frustrating. So for Jacko says he's not into Vlahovic. I have my concerns, but apparently Fabio Paratici is a massive fan, and they look at the market. According to reports, Tottenham are looking at this market and thinking, what can we really do here? How can we really make this one work? There really isn't that much out there in the way of accessible talent that is of the typical profile that we would like, that is at an affordable level. Most of the kind of low-hanging fruit was available in the summer, and that has all been eaten and gone. Now what's left? Well, we've gone through the list 1,000 times, I won't repeat it, but Dusan Vlahovic, if we wanted to get it done in January, we could. We'd probably have a clear run at him, because most of the other teams, as I say, who are looking at him, big name clubs, they will have to wait until the summer because of their own financial situation. Let's move on from Vlahovic, but stick with Juve. Yves Bissouma. Apparently he's got some ligament damage to his ankles, but he might be used as part of a make-weight in that deal for Dusan Vlahovic. According to reports, Juventus are looking again at Yves Bissouma. Listen, I think that his time at Tottenham is done. It's a shame, really, because the best version of Bissouma might be a part of the solution to what we're lacking in the middle of the park. But the latest version of Bissouma that we've seen really isn't the best version of him for the most part. And also, obviously now he's got his ankle ligament injuries, so he'll be out for some time. That will probably put any kind of deal for him moving to Juve in jeopardy, unless he recovers quickly and is fit by the turn of the year. Let's talk a little bit about Antoine Semenyo for a second, guys. According to the Telegraph this morning, Tottenham Hotspur had a £50 million bid, a €60 million bid rejected. This is from the Telegraph, by the way, for Antoine Semenyo at the start of the summer. Us and another unnamed Premier League club put in a £50 million, €60 million bid, give or take, for the player. It was rejected, and then shortly after that, Semenyo signed a new contract. So the interest is genuine, it's real. But as I say, to get Semenyo out of Liverpool, out of Bournemouth, you have to overcome quite a lot of hurdles. One is the competition for the player. He's an Arsenal fan, so if Arsenal were to come in, do you want to go down that whole path again and get little broed like we did in the Eze thing? That Not sure the fan base would tolerate that. It would be too embarrassing and too painful. So do we move on immediately? Even if it wasn't Arsenal, because Arsenal now have got a very fit and very firing Martinelli that doesn't want to leave. They've still got Leandro Trossard that doesn't want to leave. They'd have to sell surely one of those or both of those to make room for a player like him. Would that be something that would be more likely to happen in the summer than January? Because it's difficult enough to get one deal done in January. If you have to sell two wingers of that sort of tier player, which is the more... I don't know, the more higher profile player, the more complicated it is sometimes in January to make room for him, then also find time to get him in at the same time as other teams are sort of, swarming around that whole story. I find that one a difficult one, but that's part of the concern. Do you want to get little broed by Arsenal? I don't. Also, Liverpool, according to a lot of reports, he only wants to join Liverpool if not Arsenal because of who they are and the brand and all that stuff, and I get all that. That's fine. Although Liverpool really don't look quite the same this year, do they? It's interesting times at Anfield. After that, you also have to fight back the idea that Bournemouth, if they are still in and around where they are in the league right now, are they really going to sell their prized asset when they could ultimately finish, maybe, potentially, why not, in the Champions League spots this summer, at the end of this season? And then keeping him would be worth its weight in gold for them, because if he would be responsible for that happening in no small part, then they'd get £100 million from the Champions League sort of revenue, give or take. And so... there's no incentive or interest or need or necessity to sell that player in that scenario. So it'd be very, very difficult. And also, I think that like I said earlier, the release clause isn't triggerable until the summer. So you'd have to go and put in a number that Bournemouth's Bill Foley couldn't turn down, which I would imagine possibly has 3 numbers before the letter M. And is that going to be too much for even our new ambitious owners to chew on? How about this for a story? According to reports, Can Uzun, the Frankfurt, the latest in the long line of Frankfurt talent, that just conveyor belt of talent over there, isn't it, in the attacking part of the game. Can Uzun, well, Tottenham have had scouts over there 2 times apparently in the last month looking at Can Uzun. This guy is as a 10, can play a little bit off the left as well. Quite a versatile player, very, very super talented player, and someone that I'm sure will eventually leave Frankfurt. A player that apparently comes with at least a €70 million asking price. I'd be surprised if he was to get it. He hasn't done that much, that often, that frequently recently to be able to command that sort of price. But this is what Frankfurt do, right? They can just develop these players, move them on, and it just goes on again and again and again. Omar Mamouche, Ekitike, at some point El Yawahi will probably be one of those types of players as well that will get a big move. And so Can Uzun to Tottenham, I don't really see why we would be looking at a player like that now that we have Xavi Simons. Xavi Simons, I don't think is going to end up on the left-hand side. We still, of course, have Decky to somehow shoehorn back in whenever he's fit. And obviously, James Maddison, he won't be around for this season, but are we really going to stack up more 10s, predominant 10s, in a world where everyone gets back for the 26-27 season? I can't see it happening, but Can Uzun is on the list, and Tottenham scouts were spotted at that game. Maybe they weren't there to watch him, maybe they were there to watch someone else. Not sure. Last story for you today, guys, before I leave you alone. In fact, there's one more story after this. Is Jeremy Monga, the 16-year-old Leicester starlet. He's only just turned 16. He's been 15 for most of this year. He is a winger, plays off the right, plays off the left. I've done my due diligence on this guy. He's already played 12 times for Leicester. He's got a couple of goals in their first team, or a goal and an assist in their first team. And I've spent about 20 minutes looking through his stuff on the Y Scout. I've got to be honest. I know you're going to sit there and say, no more kids. What are we doing here? Don't need any more kids. And that's fine. And I agree with you. It's not a priority. Just my thoughts, though. This guy does look like a super talented, very effective, very cool dribbler that's already broken through into the first team at Leicester City at 16 years old. I think he might have even made his debut at 15. I'm not entirely sure, but he is a... as I say, he can play off the left, can play off the right. Some of the footage I've seen of him just juking in and out of talents, both at the Championship level and mainly at the under-21 level for Leicester. Very, very, very impressive. Tottenham are very interested, as are Manchester City, as are Liverpool, as are all the big clubs looking around for the next big thing. And this kid might be it, but whether or not it's going to satisfy you, not what we need probably. I hear what you're saying, but you know what? As long as you have one eye on the future, but the majority of your attention on the present, then I don't mind it, but it's not going to satisfy if that's the only sort of thing. But Tottenham are linked with him as well. Last story for you guys, where are we getting some money from? Well, there's been an update in regards the stadium naming rights plan and structure. Now, I'll do a deeper video on this on Sean Butler TV later today, so keep a lookout for that if you are interested in the football finance game. But in a nutshell, the plan apparently now, with regards to stadium naming rights, is to have almost like an umbrella system within the sponsorship. So you would have an overarching stadium naming rights partner, let's call it, I don't know, Deloitte, for example, or Gillette, or whatever, anything at all that you want. And then underneath that, they plan to have individual stadium partners for each stand. So the South stand might be called the Google stand. The North stand might be called the, I don't know, the Bitcoin stand, or whatever else, right? So 4 different stands for 4 different partners, 4 different sponsors under the umbrella of a main stadium naming rights. And what's interesting is reading up on this. I was reading some detail, and I'll bring this into the video I'll do later on Sean Butler TV. Please go over there and smash the subscribe. What's interesting about it is the natural sort of thought process around how advisors and consultants in that whole kind of commercial arena, football or sporting arena sort of consultancy would go. They all say that the general rule of thumb is that you first figure out the stadium naming rights partner, the guy who's paying the most money, the company that's paying the most money, and then after that, whichever industry that particular company is from, they would have exclusivity under that particular name. So they can't then partner with anybody else within that kind of industry. Think about, say, Kraken. Kraken is the sponsor for Tottenham's match day, I think game day. They're within the cryptocurrency arena, so it would be unlikely then if there was exclusivity within that contract that Tottenham could partner with, say, I don't know, like I say, any other kind of exchange or any other kind of cryptocurrency type product, because they would have the exclusivity. The way that it's been spoken about in this article is that Tottenham's plans were to first go and get the 4 stand names sorted out, each of them being from a different industry. So say one being from finance, one being from technology, one being from travel, one being from food, I don't know, whatever, for example. And then once those 4 are then done, then they were to go and get, at the end of the process, go and get the full stadium naming rights partner, which wouldn't happen for another 18 months or 2 years. And according to all these consultants that I'm reading, they all say that that's abnormal and it's backwards, and that shouldn't be the way it's going, because you're essentially cutting out all of these industries by going after the small fish first. You then couldn't go and get a bigger partner to do the overall stadium rights, because they would want exclusivity, as to would the people at the smaller level in the stands, on the stands naming rights. So it seems like if there's truth to it, then the general consensus from the consultants who work in that industry are saying that Tottenham's method here is a little bit abnormal and a little bit backwards, and they shouldn't be doing it. They should be going for the overarching stadium naming rights first, pick that industry, then give them exclusivity, and then go to the other industries for the other 4 stadiums. And this might be boring to me. I love all this stuff, but let me know if you do or you don't. But the logic of the consultant side makes a lot more sense. If you're trying to get 25 million quid a year as a stadium naming rights sponsor, but you can't get it, but what you can get instead is 18 million a year from somewhere, and then you can make up the other 6 by getting 1.5 million for each stand, for example, then why would you go and limit yourself by figuring out that the North stand, the South stand, and the industries for the East and West stand first, where you're only getting £6 million of that £25 million pie, but in so doing ruling yourself out from being able to target a bigger partner in any of the industries that those previous stands represent? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but apparently that's the way that Tottenham are going for it. Look, there's a lot of things about the stadium that are brilliant. There's a lot of things about the stadium that make very little sense. One of them, for example, putting in the South stand, which is supposed to be the noisy stand where all the fans go and chant. Well, they've also got the 1882 Club, or whatever it's called, which is a corporate endeavour for the most expensive season tickets where everyone gets a beer or whatever before the game. So it doesn't always gel, but sometimes money gets in the way of the mind. Let me know your thoughts, guys, on all of the stories today. Please also get over to Spotify and Apple Pods and all that stuff if you like these sorts of things, but you'd rather watch or listen to them when you're out and not on YouTube. But either way, appreciate you all. Like, subscribe and comment. Let me know your thoughts. And as always, bye-bye.